colleagues. My name is Jorge Enrique Cuellar, and I am going to be here with Professor Paolo Villalba Storti. We are going to be presenting Medellín In Short Film Festival as a multicultural, transdisciplinary experience. And of course, the most important is how a movie festival and university context can get to allow students to access meaning in so many different forms. At first, we are going to have Professor Paolo, and he's going to present us a little bit of the history and the context of the festival. Secondly, he's going to present the theoretical approach related on the knowledge of communication, which is social museology. Probably you are still thinking and wondering, how does it take place, or how does it connect with language and English teaching? And it's because we are having also students of not only of social communication, but also from the Bachelor in Language English Teaching from the Catholic University Luis Amigo. Also, I am going to be talking with you immediately right after this about how Medellín In Short Film becomes a multimedia convergence. Is what media convergence that is in there allows the students and prepare them to a globalized world, and especially in this context of the current COVID-19 pandemic. Finally, I am going to be talking about task-based learning, and the point is that I am going to present how students can develop certain skills in the context of something completely different as what is usually found in the normal English classroom. I am going to let you with Professor Paolo, who is going to present the introduction and, of course, this historical context on how the festival has started.
Medellín In Short Film Festival emerged as a community classroom project towards the communication of artistic and audiovisual productions from the students of social communication, advertising, and design programs from the Catholic University Luis Amigo. Considering the current context, the festival has required further development to fulfill its international and multicultural purpose in integration with the Bachelor in English Language Teaching from the same institution. In the sixth edition, interdisciplinary connections have emerged by comprehending multiculturality from a linguistic viewpoint. At first, an overview of the festival will be presented. This encounter has had a wide range of topics and stages, which have included a plethora of city-related themes, fostering cinematographic and artistic background from students of social communication and in real spaces by following the social museography approach. Secondly, a theoretical framework will be displayed in two significant paths to convey an interdisciplinary experience with the English learning process of the population described, as well as other significant interdisciplinary aspects which will lead the future English teachers of our program. In this lecture, there is a dialogue between a significant range of theoretical frameworks in order to convey a meaningful connections. At first, the concepts related to social convergence, cyberculture, media democracy, and intermediality are involved. When it comes to present the connection of these communication languages in an international festival, set productions in English language emerge under the leadership of communication teachers, so learning process taking place in a different scenario where task-based approach and comparative literature arise as possibilities in which students can express themselves in a different language based on an aesthetic experience.
And before having a presentation, what is the context and history of the festival? It is very important to know what are the two main references in terms of how the process of English learning and teaching takes place in a cinema festival. At first, I am going to talk about David Noonan, who in 1989 started to talk about how learning would take place only in real life settings. Then, by 1996, with the work of Jane Ellis, there we are going to realize that a task can have a different context and also can be connected on different kinds of language input, and of course the possibility of producing a certain outcome.
During the first edition, students had the chance to think about the creation of alternative spaces to exhibit their productions out of the classroom. Diverse themes have been developed throughout the history of the festival. Firstly, chaos as aesthetic experience was conceived as the curatorial and thematic element which lead the first audiovisual and artistic exhibition, as well as the use of audiovisual with creative purposes, exhibition design, and presentation of artworks in non-conventional spaces. The main reference of the first edition were in terms of national production, a research presentation of the father of video art in Colombia, Gilles Charalambos, with his rigorous work Aproximación al videoarte en Colombia. We have observed carefully at the development of the video sculpture production from Wolf Bostel and Nanjun Paik. The audiovisual products presented in the exhibition should have been involved into experimental, anti-narrative, and poetical exploration, logics closely related with experimental cinema, video art, music videos, and video sculpture, digital animation, argument lines, and documentaries. For the second edition of the festival was created an exhibition space with the best audiovisual production with a more minimalistic exhibition called Cinema Under the Stars, candles, a picnic tablecloth, a popcorn cart, and an outdoors screen frame, a second version of the festival with a significant acceptance. Same time, new categories arose, such as Best Chronicle, Best TV Commercial, Best Argument Line, and Best Argument Production. The third edition of Medellín In Short Films comes up with a new creative proposal centered on illustration, design, installation art, and performance art related to circus aesthetics, considering as a reference the cinematographic work of Todd Browning, Freaks, Oliver de Sagazan performances such as Transfiguration and Its Body Deformation, as well as the iconic exhibition of the abnormal presented by authors such as George Didi Huberman, Umberto Eco, Michel Foucault, and Ernest Martin. In this edition was constituted the conceptual background of the festival, thus a relationship and the dialogue among plastic arts and audiovisual production was settled. It was a night full of visual and sound stimuli related to the audiovisual exhibition, light installations, great format illustrations, and a series of performance, everything involved with an experimental and creative circus aesthetic. During the fourth edition, the curatorial theme of Medellín in Short Film was involved within digital arts and transmedia narratives. The festival generated its first connection with the public, considering a wide participation of students from different universities of Medellin, as well as artistic collectives and community audiovisual producers. The university and the festival moved to the city by creating a public call for university students, emergent artists, audiovisual producers, and independent art collectives from all over Antioquia. In this fourth edition of Medellin in Short Film, we had the chance chance to count on new spaces to make an academic seminar at Centro Colombo Americano related to digital arts and transmedia narratives, as well as the participation of national and international lecturers. On the other hand, we had the intervention of the professor and digital artist Jaime Betancourt Sanchez, who provided us a theoretical and practical video creation workshop in real time and including automated learning. The workshop aimed to become a tool towards the mediation and comprehension on how visual culture has turned dramatically during the last decade due to the advance of technology accessibility of the development of video installation and video mappings as a new formats of artistic exhibition. Conversely, we had the participation of students from Catholic University Luis Amigo, national and international artistic collectives, as well as independent artists for the opening of the artistic exhibition, which took place at the Contemporary Art Gallery Paul Bordwell and the academic seminar of digital art and transmedia storytelling at the Centro Colombo Americano. On the other hand, a cinema and audiovisual exhibition and a cinema forum which took place at the Lido Theater with the participation of the theater company Los Improductivos. Towards the fifth edition were considered two main themes such as social museology and community artistic practices. Recently, the rise and growth of a new museum concept which provides a new meaning to statements such as accessibility, participation, and social inclusion. Towards the fifth edition were considered two main themes such as social museology and community artistic practices. Recently, the rise and growth of a new museum concept which provides a new meaning to statements such as accessibility, participation, and social inclusion has arisen. Social museums have been conceived as meeting points in which different cultures are connected as well as a wide range of themes where immigration, margination, women, children, war refugees, and humanitarian catastrophes are included. These aspects will be stated in detail when revising some of the theories related with social museography and how these relate to construction of meaning in the context of English teaching as a foreign language. In the community artistic practices, art experience have been conceived on a social function basis. It inquires about everything events taking place in the collective. Therefore, spectators are the center of the process. Moreover, there is a reciprocity between artists and viewers, which allow a construction with others considering their particularities, differences, and interests. Ultimately, community artistic practices arise in a specific context towards the development of a collaborative and democratic experiences which reflect on communities' social realities. For the sixth edition of the festival, the use of English was included due to the international character of the festival. Furthermore, an integration with the major in teaching English as a foreign language is proposed. In this regard, students may exchange their competencies and future professors will be prepared to face certain challenges proposed by multicultural classrooms as well as social communicators will enhance their competencies by using English in their professional background. Conversely, the curatorial topic proposed was human rights, conflict, and post-truth to connect our viewers on social museology by generating an impact with arts in an educational setting. Colombia has an inner conflict even before Gaitan's death and frequently rebuild the history to find out the point where everything starts failing is imperiously overwhelming. Nevertheless, it can be stated that every day there is a noticeable unfairness when it comes to execute human rights since conquest and colonial times, resulting in a damaged social fabric because of the social conflict as well as the lack of guarantees to protect individuals. To start with, in social museology, the most important to constitute the idea of museum is to connect with people's everyday life by considering their decisions and considerations on how to shape a particular space and how we would create meaning for communities. Museums were considered as temples of the muses devoted to the contemplation of objects. Afterwards, the idea of museum had changed to collect objects owned by wealthy families of institutions, especially the cabinets of curiosities concept which arose in the late 17th century. During the 20th century, museums certainly stated new demands to face the social and political challenges, considering that a varied range of numerical practices on the ways they have collected these elements, especially considering the rise of civil rights movements. Museums claimed that primitive cultures couldn't take care of these species. Anyhow, philosophers and cultural thinkers started to shape concepts such as culture, especially the opposition between low and high culture, lead museologists and culture managers to think beyond these boundaries and providing a political and social viewpoint. Conversely, in Latin America social museography practices have reacted against an Eurocentric vision of museums and have discovered the urge to respond to a particular context by recognizing their social function. In this regard, reaches beyond the instrumental functions of conservation, order, and proper interpretation of pieces, bearing in mind that the community context demands museums to foster education functions. Different countries in Latin America have stated this fact. For example, the Declaration of Roundtable of Santiago in 1972 presents the demand of recognition of social functions of museums, as well as Mexico's Declaration in Defense of Cultural Patrimony, which emphasize on how multiculturality and the variety of cultural practices such perform an important role in social museology.
Students had also the chance to interact with English-speaking guests, which was something really meaningful in regards that social communicators and as well as teachers are going to have the chance in the future of being involved in situations where spoken English can be used in a real life context. What are going to be their context, of course? The classroom and all the different scenarios in which social communicators work in their everyday. Considering the second part of the theoretical framework, we are going to abord something really important, which is what is media convergence and what is the role that it takes with the Medellín In Short Film Festival. You know that we have so many different modalities, and there is a great diversity in terms of production, as you can check it right away on our website. Okay, good. Good. Okay, well, who created this term of media convergence? Well, Henry Jenkins, who is a professor of journalism, cinematic arts in Southern California, and his work has been related on how this different convergence of different media, such as transmedia, cross-media, and this huge amount of audiovisual formats, how they, in some way, are shaping and creating a certain culture.
Well, how does it take place? Well, or where does Henry Jenkins talk about all this framework? And it is in this textbook called Convergence Culture. What is that? Is how all these media are connected in a globalized world and how the world itself turns to be or comes into a hypertext which is spread through the network. Okay, good. What happened on Henry Jenkins? We are going to figure out like a couple of important things that has been stated by this author. Well, reduced to its most core elements, this book on media convergence, is about the relationship between three main concepts, and these concepts also are going to be wisely connected with the process of English teaching and learning. Number one is media convergence, as we said before, is on how like the different modalities on the festival are combined in a whole experience. Number two, well, we are talking about participatory culture. Okay, what is that? That also, well, not only in the classroom, but also like in real settings, as Professor Paolo has explained, in which social museology is where all the community takes part. And how do they want to be portrayed, or how they want to be displayed in a particular context. Good. And of course, collective intelligence. Well, this is also how what's the collective intelligence developed. Of course, that is related on how these media emerge and create a certain industry, like the famous cultural industry, and of course how these industries are connected with education and of course with social communication. Good. Well, I'm sorry for the up, back and forth. Alright, good. By convergence, let's read what is the convergence.
Then the question is how to find out a real connection between two different codes, which would be the audiovisual code and the linguistic code in the performance or in the scenario of language teaching and communication teaching. That question will be pretty hard to understand without framing this in the range of semiotics. Well, for instance, we are understanding art as a human experience, and which major function, of course, is to communicate the feelings, the experience, and of course, the history of humankind. So, what is going to be the role of, or the possible connection between these two possibilities, of course, that then in this scenario, in which language, reading, speaking, and all kinds of learning take place, we are going to talk about the comparative literature and, of course, the multimodal approach.
Now considering the comprehension on how does this process take place in a language learning setting, we need definitely to talk about task-based. Evidently, like the teachers and all the attendees to this conference are very familiar on this, but we need to know a little bit more about it and going beyond. Well, as I have mentioned before, well, one of our reference that is going to be really connected with the whole work, well, not only Nunan, but also like the perspective on Jane Willis on how learning takes place in a significant scenario where students, well, are going to have like their professional development or in which they're going to have like a real life experience. Good. We have considered a visioning with these outcomes performed by students are related in the curatorial teams presented in the festival. And as Professor Paulo has mentioned before, we are talking about human rights. and also how human rights are competences required not only for teachers but for social communicators and of course to everyone. But how important is this and how this process is connected? Well, here we are also talking a little bit about the methodology of the festival, and here, well, during the classes, we have an introduction to the topics and the task, because, well as the professors present the festival, and also are really it's really important to present like all of the different experiences that students have had on prior versions of the festival. Good. Over there, what do they do? Well, in different subjects, for example, Professor Paolo Villalba teaches artistic appreciation. And currently, I am a teacher of integrated language with the students of the minor in teaching English as a foreign language. Good. Well, during the classes, we perform an illicit vocabulary with that brainstorming on what sort of language are there to be used throughout the process in regard to set the whole context. And also here it is very important that the students get to know very clearly what is the curatorial theme in order to set a context. Well, then we have like the test cycle. So during the classes, we work with the students so they can get to produce their audio visuals. We try to have an interdisciplinary work in which three different teachers, in this case, Professor Tatiana Arboleda, that makes part of our team but is not here with us. But also, well, the three of us work during the classes on how we can get to organize and produce the whole festival. In the task cycle, well, it's not only like the idea of producing an audiovisual, but students, as we have seen before, need to produce different pieces for social networks in English. Right? Good. Then, of course, the final process or the final task, or what is the outcome in which students analyze and practice the language and work with it, is not only like in the production of the audiovisual, but also in the process of willing to create these pieces in order to promote the festival all over the network and make it, well, meaningful, not just for them but also to the community. Well, here we are having like a pre-task where the students get engaged in a creative process with the festival, and well, it's not only like having the opportunity to achieve a certain grade, but also have the chance of being published or show their learning experiences to the community. Well, how does planning take place? Well, teachers support students in the planning process and also in the workshops and in the academic seminar. Medellín In Short Film has two stages. The first, that is in the first part of the year, we have an academic seminar. As we mentioned before, well, the students will have the chance to interact with different people from international guests. Good. In the workshops proposed, for example, by this year, we have not had this activity yet, but we are going to have a very interesting workshop in which students are going to receive really important instruction on how to create a video collage, right? And also some of them are going to have this experience on producing a material in English. This workshop is going to be performed by Sentarte. They are producers, cinema producers, and they are activists from art. So they are really appropriate because it's not only going to be on how the performance take place in order to the technical aspects, but also how meaningful they are going to be in the ideas on how students reflect about their environment from their different professional backgrounds and settings. The students perform then in the task audiovisual products in English, guided by the teachers and supported by the creation workshops, the ones that I have mentioned before. And later they would have an assessment process, and all the best works that meet the curatorial criteria for the exhibitions are going to be presented, and they're going to be like the post tasks. Good. Okay. To continue here, well, we have some images on the products made of students from Luis Amigo University. Well, some of them can be seen in YouTube, and I hope that you can get to see them. Well, Fantasy Stories for Children about a Colombia without violence has been like a really beautiful work performed by students of third semester of the Bachelor in Language Teaching. Of course, with a lot of difficulties in terms of audiovisual and in terms of edition, and I wish that I could have the chance of sharing that with you, but well, due to the conditions of the presentation and of the video, well, it's not such a good idea to put a video inside the video. Anyway, students can get to read and get in contact with different material in English and then be able to produce reflection. During the sixth edition of the festival, the students have the possibility of expressing their feelings using the target language. That is something really important because we are not only talking about the professional and the academic setting, but also how a language can be connected and is involved with a lifetime experience. Right? Students will produce a wide range of products, and the idea is that now, currently, they are still producing during this semester, and two courses that I have that are integrated language, and of course, well, Professor Paolo with the courses of artistic appreciation, and as well, we are having the same experience with Professor Tatiana in her courses. All right, good. Those only have like an academic impact, and in well, like in the whole process. Then, not only will this production, well, in terms of tasks, is going to be like really important, but also, well, to continue with the theoretical framework of the experience, we are going to talk about the comparative literature and how is it connected on understanding the human behavior. And well, many people probably they're asking by watching the video, but how is this connected by learning a language? Of course, like learning a language is not just like the typical sentence of learning a language is like learning a culture, teaching a culture, I'm sorry, but also is the idea of communicate a wide range of meanings in which human rights and conflict as a global experience well take a significant role in the humankind. Here we have the book that is the multimodal of Gunter Kress and Theo van Leeuwen, and as we have mentioned before, there is really important to understand that there are multiple connections and different sorts of communication modes. Well, right here you can see a little bit of our website, and right there we can get to see the different categories. There we are going to connect with the media convergence that we were talking a few minutes ago, but also like about that these processes, the creative processes, are not under the domination of monomodality. What does it mean, monomodality? I mean that there were, well, just only some certain ways or some canonical ways in which messages and language take place in culture. And of course, well, this is connected also with language learning processes, because also, well, these procedures would take place on how teachers and students manipulate and work with the language. Good. Well, of course, well, this monomodality will created like certain boundaries in the process of art creation. But then, what happened? What are the conditions, or how can you understand that a project can be multimodal and can dialogue with different sorts of meaning and in different procedures to convey language? Well, number one, we have, well, different levels of multimodality divided on images, discourses, social actors, and the journalism in specific settings. Good. What do we say? Well, what is the information value, the placement in relationship with the text, the saliency, the speciality, the proximity? How an image can express a particular narrative. Good. Here also, well, how does these elements of information value, salience, framing, and modality on what is the truth value or the coding orientation, or what is the kind, in what kind of narrative is involved, the speech that is taking place? And we can get to think about different mass media, for example, and the news, and how we can get to make like some analysis with the students in order to help them understand these different nuances. Good. The discourse, the specific, well, what happened with the, well, we are not going so deep into these aspects of modality, but also we can get to know that there are a specific discourse, some strategies in order to know what is the effectiveness of communication in different settings or in different media. Well, what is the social role, or what is the personal determination of the student? How the student can express their own opinions and how they can have a semiotic value. And of course, well, what happened with the other aspects? Well, they are called as journalist specific, but it is related on how a judgment takes place on a multimodal speech. Good. Well, what happens? And according to contemporary semiotics, what happened with the results of multiple dialogues? Well, that here, there's multiple formats, or these multiple ways on how language take place, of course, are connected with the task-based learning, having in mind that students are going to produce language like in these particular settings. What are the results? What are the projections of the festival? Well, one of the greatest things is that the students have been able to produce different outcomes, audiovisual, multimedia, cross-media, and which are combined with their own experiences, their lifetime experience on how the current conflict in Colombia had an echo in them. Well, then, of course, set test has been guided by teachers. Well, and it's something really interesting and really valuable. Well, as you can see, not only language teachers have been involved in this process, but of course social communication teachers. And probably they are also, of course, in a learning process, because they are also perfecting their language skills. And because language is not something which they are in touch all the time. But currently, and according to this experience, professors of social communication are using English and figure out ways to connect students with the language. Of course, well, we can create like that different ranges of knowledge. Good. Right now, students are working on developing the festival task by producing different kinds of content related to human rights during the classes, and also in the socials of the festival. And also, well, it has been a fantastic experience on how we can get to be connected in an interdisciplinary way. Well, the language teaching students have developed their awareness on social aspects. This is really important because as teachers, we are not only called to talk about what is the structures of language, how is it organized, but also to develop different strategies. So it's very interesting because students from the major in language teaching, well, needed also to expose to different sorts of material, and they needed to practice, of course, reading, listening, and comprehension strategies in order to be able to produce material and, of course, to support their counterparts of social communication. Good. Language teaching students will develop also their awareness on different type of text formats, and well, not only them but also the students of social communication, how they can get to know that when they need to express themselves in English is not only just the result of figuring out a translation or trying to force the language, right? So also the students have been exposed to different summarizing, reading comprehension, listening comprehension strategies. So they can get to have also like a prior research on materials in the language, because it's not necessarily adapted material. They went into the news, newspapers, well, internet websites, etc. Good. These are like some of our references. Number one, we are having about all new museology and education and social change. And well, how also English teachers information with our the students of the mayor can have like these certain approaches to literature, and our idea is to keep working on researching and working on this. Of course, Mr. Henry Jenkins with the text convergence culture, and when we talk also about the Chris Gunther, about Theo van Leeuwen, about the multimodal discourse, well, the multimedia on contemporary communication, well, we wouldn't be able to finish this video if we could get so beyond on these topics. And of course, well, two of the most important reference on the task-based learning.
Finally, and as a result of all of these experiences, the students have been able to produce different outcomes in which they could make evident two things. Number one, their reflection on human rights and the conflict, the current conflict, not only lived in Colombia but around the world, and also the possibility of creating audiovisual, transmedia and cross-media materials in which they could have like the possibility of not only learning about their context but also learning a language. On the other hand, the language teaching students develop a great awareness of different types of social situations in which they are going to be connected and involved in their everyday life. And as a conclusion, of course, we know that this is currently an unfinished experience, and hopefully we would like to be here once again and mention and share with you more English outcomes and more of our experiences, which we hope that take place not only at the Catholic University Luis Amigo, but in other universities, and trying to combine so many different voices to understand art, language, and all this learning as a possibility not just to frame ourselves in an academic background, but also to think about our social engagement and how teachers are connected with the construction of peace.